Hello everyone, welcome to another weekly stream here from Loop Games. My name is Jens, working as lead game designer. And today is a bit of an oddity one. It's not a Friday stream, it's a Thursday one because I won't be available for night. I'm alone. You know, I'm completely unsupervised except Dennis hanging around in the chat here, so who knows what mischief we can get up to today. But yeah, so today's topic, as people have seen on the titles, we're talking about property, claims, ownership, the new different property types. As during the settlement stream, that picker was a bit lost. It's back, so now I can show how you select different property types between cultural and residential. So yeah, I think since I'm here alone, don't really have anyone to kind of buffer out with, so please make sure to drop questions and comments in chat. I got Dennis checking it, I'm also checking it a bit. I've got YouTube chat and Twitch on my end, and I think Dennis can check Facebook as well. So yeah, I think we can just dive right into it. And so when you're starting off and you're joining a new world, you've seen this a little bit before. Yeah, the claim tool is working and all of that fun stuff. It's on my branch, so it'll be deployed tomorrow, hopefully. Yeah, when you start off, you have all of these nice starting points. There's still a couple of issues remaining where once you click it, it doesn't really load that specific chunk quickly enough, so you'll do a little bit of a flying, as we'll see here. But these are just quick notifications for what general is available. For the immigration thing, these will get replaced with settlement immigrations. So once you have a town, they'll pop up and you can write some text and whatnot. But we'll just pick one here. We'll do a bit of flying to avoid that. We are gonna add some sort of delay, so you click a spawn point and it'll actually load the chunk that you picked before, so you don't have that amazing experience. Right in here. Playing nice. Everything was working until the stream. Then aren't load properly, but we'll give a bit of a flyover here. As you can see, the plants are not really generating quickly enough. However, the terrain does, and the loading is looking amazing. I think everyone has done a really awesome work at making sure that when you're driving around, you won't be running into the same kind of void that you're always seeing pre-10. But we'll pick this nice little hill. Yeah, once you come into the game, and fair warning here, I know some people have had this issue come up with yeah, this window here where you're seeing this camera thing. This is a deprecated feature, so this was just kind of a mock-up and used for debugging. This is not working, so if you do try to interact with this on the playtest as is right now, it'll break the UI and you're gonna have to restart your client. So just ignore that this exists until it actually gets removed. But yeah, so one of the things I wanted to do with this stream in particular is that when I had John on here doing the settlements is such a behemoth of a feature across the board. It touches so many different areas, and it's really kind of all-encompassing. And it felt like we kind of sped through a lot of the detailing and a lot of the general finer details and implementations of it. So I just want to kind of break it down into multiple streams where we each go through kind of each segment more, explaining a bit to people, and they can also use the reference for when they're starting out and when they're kind of either testing it out or just playing in general, just as kind of a reference feedback thing. So yeah, starting off on a new world, you've got your amazing little camp up. I've already created an avatar, which is something that you do when you first start the game in 10 if you don't already have one created. And we've already shown that, so we kind of skipped through that process. You place down your tent, and you are now a resident because it's automatically joining any kind of property that you have that is residential. You get these claim stakes that you've seen, and these are the determining factors to the property types. So we open this up as usual, go into our storage, and we'll pick up the claim tool. Yeah, so the avatar is persistent and is saved towards your account, like locally on your account. So if you do jump into somewhere else, it's not cloud synced. But yeah, that is persistent across. So you can create your avatar, and then once it's created, you can join multiple servers with it, or you don't have to recreate it every time you join a new one. It will save individually for female versus male. So you could have a character looking one way for female and another one for male. But yeah, so this plot still generates its usual claims, and I've gone ahead and also increased more the news feed for a bit. Pretend it doesn't exist. We have a certain amount of plots is tied to the property limit. So the stakes are kind of your bread and butter. You don't have these claim papers that you spawn in with the beginning. As you can see, those are gone. So the innate property limitation is in your stakes. And this is a single one. And then inside the plots tab is where you see these limitations. Got some descriptions. And this is also where you drop in the claim papers when you want to improve and expand on it. So 12 for the homestead is the base limitation. And it also says how many you've claimed. But then if you want to exceed these 12, you need to add more claim papers. And the claim papers will go into as soon as we pop down our first town foundation, is where you acquire new ones. So everything up here works kind of the same, but the big limitation is going to be the stakes, because you can't create new property. Even if you'd have claim papers, you still can't claim as you will, because one, it's not adjacent to it. There's a bit of an inconsistent pop-up there, but the claiming itself works. So this will allow you to claim up to 12 plots, and then it'll prevent you from claiming more because you're at the limit. Now, with the change to this, one of the things that we really kind of looked into and are still a bit debating about how we want to be doing is previously using the property tool, or if you were to use your map, for instance. And I know some people know of this trick, some people don't. You could look over, the error shouldn't be going up there, but let's ignore that for a bit. Once you moved over your property type, or you're mousing over it, you could access it through here, and that would pop up the property window. So you could check the different statistics and everything from the map view without being present locally, as well as the property value and who is on it and residency and all of that. You had this delete button here, and the delete button is no longer existing on the claim because the claims are tied to a physical object in world space. So in this case, this foundation needs to be removed when you're deleting the claim. So if we do this, grab a modern hammer, and you pick this up, it'll uproot and remove all of the plots that are claimed. So this is essentially replacing that delete function. As said, since the claims aren't kind of their own unique thing and a non-world object. We kind of had to do something about that, because otherwise you would be able to remove the claim from the map, but you would leave the stake, which is kind of causing issues for a multitude of reasons. Yeah, and if you only have one property, the property tool will automatically change to whatever assigned deeds that you can claim for. And I think that's it. Yeah, so, or a couple of questions there. Will there be different tiers of claim papers? The claim papers are tiered, but they're linked to specific settlements. And for the admin purposes, if you're looking at things like specifically for admin claiming roads, etc., we are adding a command that allows you to spawn claims and stakes specifically tied to a settlement of your choice. So you would do something like /spawn settlement stake, and then you'd specify the settlement and then the amount. And to kind of get around that. Now, how do you recover it? So, workbench. If you lose it, or say you have lost that deals with inactivity and property that should no longer exist, in terms of like unclaiming abandoned people and so on and so forth, and this person comes back and want to get back into it. Previously, you were kind of shanked and couldn't really get back to it without begging someone for claim papers or getting them handed out. This is slightly remedied because homesteads are the inherent owning of the property. You are limited to homesteads, or limited to one homestead per individual citizen, but you can craft them. So if you have someone returning, they can craft a new homestead claim stake. And then that would allow them to create a new property and kind of get rolling again if they do come back and you've reclaimed their stuff. Yeah, I think that's it for general homesteads unique pieces. For property things in general. Yeah, Monsoon's asking about how renting works with only having one homestead. Well, there's a difference between owning something and renting it, since renting it gives you access to it at a cost and allows you to place residency, but it's not something you're actually owning, in a sense. It'll probably be a bit more kind of improvement to the renting system itself, rather than something else, because we do want to expand on the renting a little bit and then kind of make it more fleshed out and kind of working more. Yeah, no, so to clarify as to why the homesteads are unique is that homesteads are placeable anywhere in the world from the start. So that's your kind of wild claiming. And it's something that you can do even if you are even if you're a member of a town. You can still place a homestead, I believe, at the moment. I'm not gonna swear on it, but we'll give it a whirl here in a bit and see. So I want to pick up my homestead because I want to show something else that is related to it. So let's do that and just level off this area. We have some playing around. There we go. Now we have some clean empty space. So inside, to kind of progress through that, I did show a little bit earlier, but you have the ballot box. That is a bit sneaky right now. It'll probably get us that shifted recipe eventually. I'm not super happy with how it's looking right now. But the ballot box is your entryway into the regular and the expensive civics. Since every town is going to need a ballot box, it felt like it was the more logical workstation to use, even though it's technically not a workstation per se. But it made sense in terms of where you're coming into civics, because everyone needs a ballot box to be able to vote on their, or kind of run for office and do elective titles and all of that. So in here is where you have the collective civic crafting items. So one of the big things that we are going to, or getting kind of further, is the town foundation, which is your next kind of stepping stone. Grab one of those. And then we do a little bit of more for this. So we log. That's at 7. There we go. Just to kind of ourselves loose. So when you're starting off a town, and this is regardless if you don't have property at all, because you can create a town without owning any property. Most of the time you're going to be having a homestead, since that's your kind of, it's yours. And if you have a homestead placed, it'll act as a range limit piece for towns. So when you create a new town and you have a homestead placed, you're gonna need to be close enough to that homestead in order to actually create a town. So the town will shout at you for if it's not close enough. And it does this by, let's see here. Might have, yeah, so towns. This is also where you're renaming it. And as you can see here, that we didn't have last time, requirements are not met. And that is because a town requires at least 2 citizens to be created. And then also, as a kind of precursor, it requires all the plots in the room to be claimed on the single tile. So this is falling into the same scenario as the claim stake or the homestead stake. Each of these objects have their own property deeds. So when you create and place down this foundation, the foundation needs to have its own deed set. And this now shows up as I can select and interact with both of these deeds. And if you mouse over, you can see which deed it's currently claiming for. You right click it with your mouse. That's when you access this deed selection. Now I can claim it, and now it's all happy because all the plots in the room is claimed. So this is something that's also applying to furniture as well as crafting stations and everything. As long as you have something that you want to give value or get a bonus inside your room, the entire room needs to be claimed. And this was something fundamentally changed in 9.6, I believe. Just in coloring. So now we're here. We need another citizen. And I have a pop state town, I believe. And that gives us a bunch of citizens that join my town. There's obviously a QA command, so make sure that you test the commands out properly before you use them on a live server, because some of the things that I use may destroy things and are not necessarily meant for long-term use on servers, especially these with kind of that generates fake users and changes out criteria of things. I forgot the work in progress text. Dennis hasn't let me know of that. Have it here somewhere? Probably. I can find it here. So once you have this criteria set, you have enough players that have been wanting to join your town. You can see here an example on how it's looking. It is work in progress. You can see that these are people that have applied to the town themselves. So they've gone up to this foundation and said, hey, I want to be a part of this town. And the immigration laws in this town is allowing for anyone to actually apply to it. And then you have these two that have been invited. So these gets this prompt similar to when you invite someone to a residency, it'll pop up saying like, hey, this town has invited you. You want to accept and join it. And if they click OK, they'll be passed into the actual citizens. So these two are applied. We can approve them, and they'll be popped over here. Since they're fake users, they're not really behaving in the way normal citizens would be. And this allows us to set the name for it. So if we want to change this out to Otterville. And here we can also change out the color that the map overlay has as a secondary color and a primary color. And see how it's still, the requirements are met, but the constitution has yet to be sorted out. So similar to how the general government is created, it needs the constitution to be able to dictate the terms of the general rules and legislation that is allowed to be happening in that region. As towns are, each town is its own government body. It does make it a little bit more complicated in terms of how you kind of set up if you're just playing this as a group. Now, it should be mentioned that there is a way to disable the entire settlements feature, and that'll just hand out claim papers and claim stakes similar to how it's doing pre-10. But if we're happy with this default one, we don't want to change anything, or maybe we want to change out the executor so I can do magical things and just pass laws willy-nilly, we'll ratify it. And then everyone that's inside and are valid citizens are gonna get this election pop up and be able to vote on it. Do this. And we finish the election. And you can see some achievement stuff that's happening as well. Clear out notifications. And now we have a passed constitution for this. And we go through the founding process. And now we can actually found it. And this then prompts, as we saw before, prompts all the users that were involved in actually creating this town. And they'll have their nice little name, as well as icon showing up on the plaque. And it also prompts that we are not a member of any country. For the claiming question, it'll just not allow you to do that. It'll prompt, I believe it will prompt you and say like, hey, it's not valid and need to make sure that it's connected. Test this out here just to make sure I'm not lying to you or making this up. Yeah, actually here we have an interesting effect here. Now that we have a town created, you can see this red border that is showing us the limitations of the town. So now that this homestead is a member of a town, it can no longer claim any property and exert its presence outside of the town influence. We do this. Try to do that. It gives you this error message saying cannot remove this plot, as it would split the homestead. Cannot swear if that was actually fixed, or because this view still has. Yeah, that causes some wonkiness because this is not really supposed to do that. But there are some innate. Oh boy. Oh boy. It may have not liked that. Sorry. That is very true. If it wants to let me back in again. A lot of red text. I might need to restart the server because of it, but I'm not sure. Object. Oh yeah. Let me just do that. Maybe it's letting me connect. I should not have done this. Why did you not prevent me, Dennis? As you can see, some things are not meant to happen and some things are just not covered yet. But as Dennis said, it is a work in progress and it is something that is still having some quirks that we need to fix out and make sure that it's not a valid action. Such as that, as you saw, the direct action was preventing, but it wasn't preventing me from doing it from the map view. But once it validated on the client side, it it disappeared. Where was I? Yeah, so now that the homestead is inside a town and it's registered as the owner of the homestead is registered as a townee, you have this nice little red can't claim outside of it. And that is kind of where culture comes in. And culture is its whole other kind of ball game where you increase the culture value of a town. And that'll increase the influence radius. You can see here. So here we have our town influence, and anything outside of that is something that is just not touchable for us. So how do we expand that? Because there we go. On a property type, and this is kind of where we're talking about different types of properties. So in here, we have a new kind of drop down that is not filtering completely. Any foundation of a town, or a town foundation, or a country foundation, or a federation foundation, is a cultural property, because culture is what's deciding the influence radius. So this cannot be changed from a cultural type. But this is how you are able to extend cultural value. So the properties that you can create here, if I go in here, and you can see that, you can see that it spawned a bunch of new claims, and it spawned a bunch of papers due to the amount of citizens that I have in this town. So if we can grab this, and we can grab some paper just for good measure, and we mouse over it, and you can see that it starts a deed for Otterville when it's been placed. So this is a claim stake that is only able to add properties inside of this influence radius. So to expand culture, for instance, one of the ways of doing it is if you pop one of these down, place it down here, and then we go in here, and I believe it's that one. General naming is a bit. Let's add one paper just to make it even claiming, because uneven. And now it should update, yeah. So now I can claim 6 tiles here. There we go. And as a rule of thumb, residential housing is what allows you to get housing bonus. Cultural property is what allows you to add cultural value to the town, up or down. Move in on the property, and here you see how it's pre-selecting residency, and here you have a selection down for cultural and residence. So as you can see, unless you have it as residence, you won't get a multiplier for your housing bonus. And cultural, apparently I'm not owner. Why am I, what? It was working. But somehow it's deciding that do I do that? Is it wanting to do it now? Apparently not. Supposed to be able to add it to culture. Yeah. I'm at a loss of words there. I'm sorry. Oh boy. Boom. Drop in. Pretend they don't exist. Don't you want it to be changed? Anyway, yeah, so cultural deeds takes essentially housing value, partially. But it has specific cultural objects. So we've seen the picture frames, for instance, being one of them, where you add pictures and you can rate the picture, and that'll provide the picture itself is worth a certain amount of cultural value, and that'll be your cultural object that you can drop out, and you can have a bunch of different things. Yeah, several. So the claims are limited to inside the town radius. The town radius is expansive, and the cultural increases the radius. I believe if do a bit tricky here. I wonder if it's working properly now. Wants to add that. I need another house. Do brick. This might get a little bit messy as I'm doing this. Let's grab that and let's just do this just to show this off. So if I grab all 75 claims in here, I drop them in. Now I can claim 84 tiles. So you could, in theory, have like a huge group of people, and they could have, you know, their entire town as this sort of commune kind of sharing property, with the exception of creating a separate one for specifically housing. But if they wanted to have like a production town and they all wanted to share the property, they could do that. We do this, and then we claim this up just to make sure that it's in this property, and we also these. Believe it. Not really update properly. Updating. What is it saying? Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what I did there. I wonder if anyone else noticed it before I did. I wasn't claiming it for the town, I was claiming it for this other deed I had set up. I wanted to be that. There we go. Now you see that this is a cultural room. It provided value. Sure, if it actually increased the radius a little bit. I'm still kind of working on the design and the balance part of it to make sure that we kind of get the range of the values for cultural. So you have different thresholds you reach. There you can see it expanded a little bit. Basically getting that math right where the culture kind of falls into the same value as housing, where a certain amount of levels get you up to thresholds, and then that'll keep bumping your radius. If you don't cover within the radius completely, you won't be able to join it because you're too far away. And it'll actually prompt you to that, which is where you would need to kind of either relocate, migrate a little bit, or maybe bribe the mayor into placing down and building a cultural property closer to where you're at to kind of expand the border into that region. If we continue on this, so once you have, yeah, no, school is kind of a slip in there. It's not really supposed to be in that list, at least not now. So it'll be removed, but the idea is that that'll be working towards the education branch stuff that not really talking about right now. So once you have your town and you have that order going out, and you want to include this other town, if I can uninvite myself here now that we have a bunch of people. So if you're a member of a town and you want to leave the town, I can leave it because I transferred over the property ownership to the mayor. And right now my homestead isn't really limiting us. So right now it's just letting me leave because it's not prohibiting on the homestead, which is sort of it's supposed to do. But as a reminder, it is a work in progress, and all of these kind of small hiccups and misses that kind of crop up during the playtest is going to be super helpful. Yeah, right now it's essentially just like all the property, it's just a cut out from it, but that's not really intentional. The intended feature is that if you wanted to leave a town, you're gonna have to kind of pack up your property and relocate completely. Or, you know, sell it off to someone in the town that wants to buy it from you, perhaps. Maybe some hard-earned otter coins. But yeah, so once you have your town, and you want to create, since I'm not a part of that one, let's just pop another town here. Over here. Oh, let's not do that. Up badly. That and town foundation. Close enough. Right. I am still a leader of Otterville titles. I am so bad at titles commands. This is what we have these amazing GMs that sorts these out for us when it comes to the public servers. They should have. I think we can give them a virtual medal here. Amazing GM staff that kind of handles all of this. Titles. Do that. I think that should do. Yeah, there we go. So now we have the same situation here, where this claim needs to be its own uniform thing. Otherwise it'll be sad and not really count. There we go. That one is there, and make it down again. And now we have enough citizens in here. We can found this town. First town. Because I am lacking imagination for names right now, just bursting through this. Start the election. Finish the election. found this town, and now we have another town over here. I think it's a little bit bigger with the culture. Tiger Town. Yeah, but the Otter, you already have Otterville, Dennis. You can't. You want Otter Town as well? We can. So now we have 2 towns. Let's keep carry on. And we want to create a country. We are doing that. I'm gonna be doing the same thing here. Is that what we're calling it? Yes, we are. This will be a bit cramped. Did we get a little bit too close? Yeah, we got a little. Let's do it 10 instead. So all of these different properties, all of these different stakes and claims have their own unique kind of limitations in terms of how many claims they have. What do you mean if you have like 2 very adjacent towns? Because they do have their own unique properties, so you can't place one foundation on top of the other foundation because of the deeds. But if you have them kind of bubbling up against each other, at the moment it's gonna be essentially the first one that gets created. It's gonna cover the big area of influence, and it should be preventing the other one, but I'm not entirely sure if that restriction is in place right now. But if you have a town that is created and you want to create a new town next to it, there is a range limitation in how much of a proximity you can place a new town in. So a town foundation at the moment has a kind of plot limitation of 9. So each foundation kind of comes with 9 tiles that you can claim. And moving on to the country, because it is expected that a country is gonna be needing more space by default, because you're probably gonna want to be placing some courts, maybe some zoning office, and maybe some other general civic structures. We kind of wanted to give that leeway to be doing that. This spot here to make sure covered. And as you can see here, the country also has a bit of a different type of requirements. So now you need to have at least 2 member towns. You need to have at least a certain amount of citizens across all the member towns. And you also need to have a total amount of culture value across those members. And as you can see here, currently there's 0, because each kind of town joining this foundation or this country, this two. Do we have a name for this? Otterland. This out. Some red and green, just because. So citizens can still join without being a member of a town. You can have like wild citizens. But the general member citizens is it's a civic action, and a civic action is whenever you need to vote for something to happen. And so inside your actual town, have a tab and a component called civic actions. And this is also where you're voting to change the name of the settlement, where you're revoking citizenships from someone. So say, you know, you want to pick this guy and he's really just polluting the heck out of the place, or he's really just killing otters, and you want to kick him out of the town, you can push for an election to do that. Yeah, so to join the country, we have this, and you can select to join it, and you create an election for it, which works the same way as everything else. It first generates a draft, and then this kind of lumps up any other civic actions. And this creates a local election inside this town for if this town wants to join it, and all the people in this town gets to vote on it, assuming that it has a general election. So we complete that through command, and it still says not a member of any country because the country is not yet existing. So on here, we now have this as applied. So the person kind of responsible for accepting the different towns is the person who is also placing it and owning it. And this is kind of handled through the head of state title, or there is a whole bunch of pre-generative names for it, but essentially the elected title that owns this country is automatically set as the person who approves towns joining or sets up the constitution in the way they want it to be. And they pop in here as applied. If you approve it, they pop in as member settlements. And we can do... so one command for admins that was... someone was trying that out on... I noticed on Discord. Oh yeah, the text seems to be a bit wonky. Not sure. I can probably... Let's do this. I'm not sure why no one has told me this, but I mean, we could just increase the interface scale a little bit so it's a little bit more legible. Dennis, please. Why you not tell me? Hope that's more readable. Seeing if that's a confirmation. So the old command for ignoring requirements of a specific world object is not valid when it comes to the settlement objects because they work differently. Because they have a lot of different kind of requirements and different parts that they need to be kind of ignoring rather than just a specific status requirement. So you have a new one. That's all over the place here. Come back here. So inside here, now I'll be seeing a lot more than as we have these developer tier ones. You have no set requirements, which is not completely accurate. I need to change out the description for that one. But we have a force enable, which is what you should be using when you want to debug or break things with admin commands for this. So that is the command that was used to get these nice purple little... Yeah, this command kind of overrides everything and everyone. So this is what allows you to kind of go into the admin assign. So I can just go in here and I can grab Otterwill and just apply it and shove it in here. So now that that's done, that's an interesting fraction of a settlement. We have 0.48 citizens in here. Not entirely sure there's probably a slender fox in there somewhere. Oh yeah, it's the culture, never mind. You're being confused. It's not Friday yet. Soon. We've got 13 citizens. We have the 2 town required. And now that that's done, we have this requirements are being met. This font will probably change color so it's more readable. we'll go through the same process here where we need to pass the draft, start the election. We want to do that? Maybe. Probably easier to read on screen, although it gets a little bit big. It does make it really crisp and clear though. Almost reminds me a little bit of pre-8. Now that one is in election, my chat go. Chat. Now we do /fin, as that's a /finish quick command for any civic election that is happening at the moment. And this is kind of a volatile command because it will pass the first election it can find. Which means if you have a live server and you're trying to do this and suddenly someone pops up, say a road law, when you in fact wanted to create a or pass an election for, say, a district, and then someone pops up a law for preventing everyone from placing a campsite. You do want to specify exactly which election you want to be targeting, while I just do a blank /bin because it just passes the only election existing in the world. Now that that's done, we have this here, and we can found the country. And bam, it includes all the citizens that is a member of the towns that participated in this. And they pop in here. Yeah, historic moment. And as you can see here, all these citizens are spawning claim papers as long as they're a member of a town that is a member of a country. And this kind of scales up. So once you move into Federation, then the Federation is going to be spawning all papers for all the citizens that is sort of its umbrella covering in the different towns and in the different countries. Now that we have this here, we have this country, and at the moment, like I said, I'm experimenting a little bit with the ranges and radiuses. So one of the things that will be happening is making sure that the cultural range of the initial country is covering the radius of those two first towns. So there's still a little bit of work to be done there. But yeah, so once you have this, all of these claims can be used on any claim stake that is within the influence sphere of Otterland. And the same thing for these claim stakes. They can be used anywhere inside this country. Which means the bigger, and this is kind of deriving to the cultural value of a town is going to add to the cultural value of the country. So if you have a really cultural boosted town, it'll make that country that actually, that adds to it, going to make that country radius even bigger. And yeah, so to answer, Dennis kind of poked at it, but what happens to used claims if a person goes from active to abandoned? Well, there is a higher incentive to keep people in the game and in your town, where, as you can see here, you've got claim papers per active/abandoned citizens as 20 by 5. And this is also a value that's it's moddable at the moment, so it's not a preset encoded one, so anyone can kind of tweak it and change it for their server. But if you have an active citizen in your country, or like a non-abandoned, I should say, that citizen is worth 20 claims. And if you claim those 20 tiles, and then that citizen turns into abandoned, you'll run into something called a property crisis. And this is kind of the limit, in a way, where a town or a country is limited to the total amount of claims possible by the active community. So you really want to keep people alive and keep people around you to keep kind of a healthy ongoing town and not having to deal with properties. Trying to come up with a good way to describe it. Essentially, you know, you can have 20 claims, but if that player goes inactive, that claim count goes down by 15 at the moment. So you're gonna need to unclaim 15 tiles to be able to continue claiming. So it's kind of an innate limitation in the towns and in the settlements to deal with property shifts, where you might, if you have someone that goes inactive, you might want to unclaim a couple of tiles for him to make sure that he's still within the valid count to kind of reclaim that property, but not boot him out completely, because he is still a valued member of that town for his contribution up to that point, even as an abandoned player. And part of this is to kind of give a bit of incentive for people that might not be super active, or they might disappear and come back next week and have all their stuff completely ripped out. They're still necessary for the town, so you shouldn't want to be incentivized to kick them out immediately. Now, this might be a bit controversial. Does that also happen if there's still claims left, or do you still have to remove the claims? In terms of the total count, yeah, you would need to kind of unclaim or reclaim the property for the country or for the town, and then kind of unclaim, because it is a total count towards the settlement total of that tier. So if you have, say, you know, 400 claims that you can make with the people that you have in your town, and then suddenly half of them leave and you're down to 200, then you're gonna have to unclaim 200 tiles before you're allowed to keep claiming more for someone else. So that kind of falls under the curfew of the government of that settlement, to make sure that they have a continuancy plan for when people go inactive, when people join. And that kind of falls us into the last bit that we wanted to cover here. And that was a bit more in depth on the immigration, because that kind of got browsed over now that we have the influence radius properly reacting. So inside the immigration desk, you have a default immigration policy when you create your town or your country or federation. Kind of just going with the settlement reference here. So one of the things that were fixed here lately was that when you place down a civic object, you have an associated settlement. And if there's multiple influences this can happen to, they get selectable here. So if we add one more of these and we pop it into here, it should pop up here. Yeah, so this town is inside the influence radius of both Otterland as well as other town. So I can select where this is, in which area this should be enacted in. And this is something that you can't change the associated settlement if there is an active policy or an active law. And it'll default to whichever is kind of makes sense for it. So if it's in the town, it'll be here. If it's placed only in the nation, it'll pop down here. But inside this, we're going to revise the immigration policy. We have a couple of kind of noteworthy and really important options. One of the things being allowed applicants. So if you set this to not or no, you cannot apply freely to it. So this is basically turning it into an invite-only state. You can also set requirements for any new settlements that they are needing to complete to be able to apply to it. So say, you know, they want them to be a resident of a certain district, or you don't want admins in your town, and then you can select it's not admin, and you know, just not let admins in here. Or you can do the opposite, and you can have an admin town and no one else is allowed to join except the admins. And then you also have who is approving these conditions. So this is what I was talking about with the head of state being the default selected option for approving new towns joining the country. So this is something that you can revise and change out to whatever you want. And then you have requirements for continued citizenship, which is fairly self-explanatory. If they breach this condition, they'll be kicked out of the settlement after a certain amount of hours. And then this is the set amount of hours that is required to be kind of remedy the situation. And then you have the option to allow brand new people to instantly join. And then requirements for new child settlements. So this will basically prevent you from starting, say, new towns inside this. So this is also handled inside the immigration. So if you want to create a new town in this country, this would need to be set as yes. If this is a no, then you can't create new towns. So this is something that is available for countries that may not want more towns to be generated under its umbrella. And then you have the allow brand new people to instantly join. So this will be, it'll allow you to join this settlement when they spawn in that town. And this was what we were talking about. I believe this should probably work, perhaps. So, welcome to Nation of Friendly Otter Protectors. And then, as any other civic actions, this is an election, and it passes through the same criteria as everything else. Newsfeed really didn't like being pushed out there. Start that, and we can pass it. And believe I can't remember what John. What was that? Now, when you have that enabled, when a new player joins in, it'll pop up as a join this town instead of like a wild spawn out in the world, and it'll pop up that message. Will say you'll have that message pop up in the on the map view. So this is something that you can do, kind of a little advertisement thing, or maybe specify that you're looking for a specific type of players, or maybe you're a European town or an American town, or whichever time zone you're in, that is preferable to be able to play together, or any kind of like free text thing. Can you have multiple immigration policies so you can perhaps have a general one and one for skill plays? I don't think it allows for more than one active policy per settlement. That I believe somewhere. Yeah, this will be, some of the pieces here will be covered in a later stream with culture and annexation and kind of hostile takeovers. A bit more into that. But I believe at the moment immigration policies is just one per country, but it is an interesting prospect, and I think it's something that we definitely want to look at. We might If I can do that. Let's see if we can cause this to explode again. Add another. Yeah, no. See, there we go. It's locked to 1. It properly actually prohibited me from doing silly things like that. We have any other questions? Mothers. Crafting land claim papers is if you are not using the settlement feature, I believe that should still be possible. If you are using the settlement feature, I believe it might be a little bit tricky because the claim papers are linked to a specific town, and at the moment there's no way to actually link a specific item crafted as like a set specific town. That makes sense. So if I go in here, what I'm talking about is these claims are specifically linked to the influence of Otterland, and I'm pretty sure that you don't have a artificial way of doing that through the crafting system. You might be able to cook some modding shenanigans for it, but I don't think that might happen. That could be tricky. You do have like a generic, if I do /give claim papers. Claim paper, I can't remember what they're called. It might even be, it might actually be property claims. If I spawn them in, they don't have a link to anything, and I believe they shouldn't be usable either. They might be at the moment. Yeah, at the moment they're still usable and they're universal, which means you could shove them in to do anywhere. But we are also adding a command for admins that allows you to spawn in specifically linked papers and specifically linked claims. As for if you don't have the settlement feature enabled at all, you are still limited to the claim stakes, but they're generated on level ups, and the papers are still generated the same way. Yeah. Do we have, Dennis, do you have any other questions cooked up? Otherwise, I think we're probably good to wrap this up. Is there something else? Yeah, no. Looks like we're pretty good. Happy to have everyone here on the Thursday evening. Hopefully we'll do a Friday one next week, but leaving the schedule open for unforeseen events, and we are trying to get stuff in order as quickly as possible. We have a whole heap load of fixes that are done and in the process to push over to staging to get the playtest in a little bit better shape. But yeah, we're quite happy with the progress, and we're stoked to see everyone kind of get hands on it. But yeah, I think we're quite good for the evening. So thank you everyone for watching, and this will also be, it is being recorded for YouTube, so it's available to re-review and kind of fall back to if you're having some questions, or if there is something that you missed. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week, hopefully.